I'm drawing with my twig the mountains, and it's just quite a nice freeing up thing to do. Rather than using a pencil, I'm actually using watercolour paint, dipping the twig in and just drawing. But you could use a pencil as well, just an ordinary twig from the garden, and I've sharpened it with a pencil sharpener. Just re-wetting the sky area here just to make sure it's nice and damp before I put the wash on for the sky. I'm using Ultramarine and a Quinacridone Rose from M. Graham, and the Ultramarines from Winsor Newton. I've mixed them together and I've got this beautiful violet, quite a watery wash, and now I'm softening because I want where the horizon is, with the lower part of the sky, I want it to be lighter and it gives it some depth. This is all wet in wet, and I'm using a size 14 black velvet brush, and details about all the equipment I'm using again is in the description with my Amazon links. I'm just tilting the sky there, and I'm using slightly thicker paint and just putting in a few more stronger, darker clouds, damp into wet. So the surface of the paper is wet, but my paint is slightly creamier than previously. I'm going to let that dry, and I'm going to do the middle ground and the foreground, and I'm wetting the paper first. I'm going to use Winsor Newton's Cadmium Yellow and M. Graham's Quinacridone Gold. If you don't have those, you can use any yellow, or you could use raw sienna or yellow ochre. I'm painting the yellow in first, wet into wet, with a large brush, my size 14 brush, and then I put on the Quinacridone Gold, just sort of cutting into the edge there. I'm not worried too much about the sky being wet, just tilt that forward so it doesn't run up into the sky too much. If you are worried about that, just let the sky dry and then start painting your middle distance and foreground. I'm just trying to cover all of this area with the Quinacridone Gold, just sort of going in between the gaps. So you've got this lovely yummy yellow, but also the earthiness and brightness of that Quinacridone Gold as well. It's lovely using this black velvet brush because you've got such a wonderful point. I've now sort of just swiped in the greens. I'm using Daniel Smith's Green Apatite Genuine, sounds a bit of a mouthful, and Cascade green. This is the Green Apatite Genuine going on. I love this green because it creates, as you can see, there's some beautiful texture. I'm literally just sweeping my brush across, just painting once and then collecting more paint on my brush. I've just added a touch of sepia to the green just to make it slightly stronger and slightly darker, and as you can see now, the paint's slightly creamier. And in watercolour you want to work wet into wet, then damp into wet, then damp into damp, and now I'm pretty much working damp into damp, so the paper's getting a bit damp now, not as wet as it was, and my paint is thicker and creamier. As you can see, those marks stay put now because they're creamier, but you still get a really nice soft edge. I've just swapped now to my size 4 black velvet brush just to get some smaller marks and a little bit of detail. I thought I'd tilt my painting now and give it a little spray, because sometimes you get some really exciting results with that. You get the paint moving and it becomes really creative. Don't be afraid of giving it a good old tilt and just see what happens. You notice my reference photograph, I'm sort of keeping the similar composition, but I'm allowing the paint to guide me, you know, with these lovely techniques and trying different things out. It's really quite inspiring. It's not for the faint-hearted now. I'm actually using very thick, creamy sepia with some of the green there, using my lovely large size 14 brush and putting on these darks. You need darks to make your lights look good. This brush can hold a lot of paint. I'm literally just dropping on the paint onto that damp surface and just seeing what happens, just letting it flow. You know, it's quite exciting and creative, and you know, it's good therapy, this. So it's time to put the cling film over this damp paint. Place it on and then run your fingers across so it really sort of sticks to the paper, and just let it dry. So once it's dry, just take off the cling film and just see all those yummy marks that it's made, and it really is so effective. Time to paint the mountain now, and I'm just wetting the top edge here and just bringing it down to the grasses, and I'm going to use ultramarine with a touch of pink to paint sort of like a purpley colour. It doesn't look like that in the photograph, but I'm using a bit of artistic license because that purpley colour will throw the mountain back, so it gives it a bit of depth in the paint. As you can see, I'm putting this on with my old palette knife, but you could use a plastic card as well. And I'm painting this wet into wet, but the paint is very creamy. And I'm just starting at the edge and I'm just putting on that paint with the palette knife. You could see it was a little bit dry there, so I'm using my brush just to soften that edge again. I'm glad that it was actually dry there because it's actually created a really nice texture because the paint is dried underneath and I've diluted it slightly, so it's actually created some texture like you would get in a mountain. So I'm just teasing that little bit of violet out there from the right hand side and letting the paint run down. As you can see, it is so exciting. I'm going in with the palette knife again. I'm not sure what's going to happen here. I am just creating, I'm just having fun. It's such a different way to paint in watercolour here, almost like oil painting, and then we give it a spray and we dilute it and we see all those lovely characteristics of what watercolour does and all those happy accidents. So I've got some blue on my knife, I've got a little touch of the Cascade green, and now I'm adding a little bit of the yellow, you know, just adding some of these colours here and there. Now I'm using my pipette to dilute that, but it has actually dried quite a lot there. So I'm actually just tilting it to the side and just seeing what happens, then using my spritzer bottle just to get that paint moving. Never quite sure what's going to happen, but I'm open to yummy things happening, and then I leave them, and you know, you're just open to creativity and ideas and things like that. And that's the wonder of watercolour. I have to say, looking back on this video now and doing this voiceover, I absolutely love what I've done there. Love the effect and the marks it's made and the colours and how they've interacted with one another. The peak of the mountain looked a bit sort of flat, so I'm just making on the left hand side just a tiny bit higher as it is in the photograph. I'm just dropping in some watery green there and some greyish green, that's the blue with the green, just to create some interest sort of at the bottom, at the base of the mountain there. You know, just trying out different things. This is all wet in wet and I'm using my size 4 brush, and I'm just going to give it a little spray to soften it because I felt it was getting a bit too dark and I want to keep some light in that area. And that's the beauty of having the spritzer bottle. You can just spray it off and have another go. I thought I'd use the plastic card here. It's just an ordinary store card cut up into pieces, and I'm just using a bit of the sepia and a tiny touch of the green. I'm just putting a bit of interest on the right hand side. I love painting with these little plastic cards. It's a kind of a freeing up feeling. You can just do anything. Now I'm using my pipette just to soften that because it's quite dark, and you can sort of create some different effects by softening it. So again, if you don't like something, you can spray it off or pipette it off. And I'm just putting a touch more dark on with a plastic little knife. I just wanted to show you all the different things you can use either in your art box or around the house even. I'm using those little wooden pegs that you get at the back of box canvas paintings that I usually just dispose of, but now myself and my students use these, especially in our acrylic paintings, to paint with, to make marks with. And as you can see, I'm painting these trees with this little wooden peg. I've just put some paint on the tip of it and I'm just painting away, or in a way drawing away or putting marks on. Now I'm using my size 4 brush and I've just got a little bit of water on it. I'm just softening some of those marks now so they're not too dense, but what I like about it is created some texture so it looks like the tops of trees. I'm now adding a little bit of ultramarine and a touch of the green, just putting some darks at the bottom of those trees, and I'm going to continue on putting some trees all the way along that mountainside there. I'm using my size 14 brush and it's wet on dry, and then I'm going to rinse my brush and just sweep from the right hand side and push that damp brush into that paint just to soften it, and it's almost like a lovely quick way of blending. And I'm glazing this over the underpainting. I still want those marks that the cling film left to shine through. So just using my size 4 round brush just to paint some details here and there, wet on dry. If you like this tutorial and you'd like to support the content that I create here on YouTube, why not think about joining my Patreon membership? You will get access to my weekly exclusive tutorials, extended tutorials, and downloadable outline sketches. see the description for the Patreon link. Using the tip of the card to create some more grasses there, and I'm going to add a little bit of dark just below those trees there to really bring that out. And I'm going to finish off now. I'm using the cadmium yellow. I'm protecting my sky and mountain. Just going to finish off this painting with a little spatter in the foreground. And it just stops me from overworking and creates texture and light. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments section. And remember, if you want to get access to my weekly exclusive tutorials, downloadable outline sketches, and longer, more extended tutorials that you see here on YouTube, why not think about joining my Patreon membership? More details about the membership can be found in the description below. Just click Patreon. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.